Kawai, fellow countrymen and women, you have just listened to the leader and the flag bearer of the great NDC, and God willing, the next president of the Republic of Ghana. My duty here is to present highlights of key policies of the next NDC government as captured in the Manifesto 2024. Colleagues, to achieve our fiscal policy and economic goals, the next NDC government will aggressively pursue the following policies. 1, we'll research the entire fiscal framework to achieve efficient resource mobilization and effective utilization of public funds. 2, we will shift from the over-concentration of the macroeconomy to the microeconomy, where investment in the real sector will anchor sustainable macroeconomic environment and economic growth. We will implement an enduring economic policy to build sustainable economic buffers to stabilize and cushion the Ghana cedi. We will undertake a number of reforms. First is the value-added tax reform, VAT reforms. Currently, Ghana's effective VAT rate is about 22%. In fact, the highest in Africa. This is because Get Fund levy of 2.5%, National Health Insurance levy of another 2.5%, and COVID levy of 1% are all added to the statutory VAT rate of 15% for the final determination of a value-added tax. Businesses are not allowed to deduct their input VAT for NHIL, Get Fund, and COVID levy. Aside the high effective VAT rate, Ghanaians are compelled to pay 3% and 6% of flat rate for VAT purposes. This effectively defeats the key principles of the input-output of the value-added tax regime. In fact, some businesses are now unable to cope with this high tax regime, and as a result, they are relocating from Ghana to places like Togo, Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, and Nigeria. It's also a fact that this is part of the reasons why some of our citizens, particularly professionals, are migrating out of our country in droves in search for greener pastures. The NPP government has distorted Ghana's value-added tax policy by implementing both sales tax and value-added tax at the same time. This is indeed the height of incompetence on the part of NPP in tax policy formulation and administration. Our pledge: the next NDC government will undertake a comprehensive review of Ghana's VAT regime. This is indeed intended to provide a relief for households and businesses. We will therefore adhere to the underlying input-output principles of the value-added tax regime. The next NDC government will do the following. 1, abolish the COVID levy. 2, will reverse the decoupling of the Get Fund, NHIL, and COVID levy from the value-added tax system. We'll reduce the effective VAT rate from the 22% to a bearable limit. We'll reverse the VAT flat rate, and we will upwardly adjust the VAT registration threshold to exempt micro and small businesses from the collection of value-added tax. We will improve VAT compliance through public education and awareness. Aside the VAT reforms, we will also undertake a public debt management reforms. In fact, to restore confidence in Ghana's economy and the capital market, and to prevent a repeat of President Akufo-Addo and Vice President Bawumia's reckless and excessive borrowing, that resulted in crude and painful haircuts, the next NDC government will establish an independent public debt management office to ensure effective public debt management. We'll also review and enforce the Fiscal Responsibility Act, Act 982, and implement a fiscal consolidation plan to ensure fiscal discipline. We will also implement a deliberate policy to build sustainable economic buffers to cushion and stabilize the Ghana cedi. We will also undertake a public expenditure management reforms, and in doing so, we will tackle the wastage of public funds and ensure prudent expenditure management, and we will also do the following. We will establish an independent value for money office to scrutinize government procurement above a threshold to be determined by Parliament. We'll reset the entire fiscal framework and implement a robust fiscal policy regime for effective utilization of public funds. Colleagues, historically, the Ghanaian economy has been the second largest in West Africa, aside Nigeria. But Ghana has lost its enviable position to Côte d'Ivoire due to lack of investment and dedicated policy towards economic transformation and growth. As at end 2016, the size of Ghana's economy was 55 billion Ghana cedis, representing the second in West Africa, while that of Côte d'Ivoire was 48 billion Ghana cedis, the third largest in West Africa. However, in 2022, Ghana lost its enviable position of the second largest economy in West Africa to Côte d'Ivoire. As at the time, in the year 2022, Ghana's GDP was $73 billion, whilst that of Ivory Coast was $75 billion. So since independence, for the first time, Ivory Coast overtook us in terms of the size of GDP as at the year 2022. This situation is projected to worsen by end of this year, whilst the Ivory Coast GDP is projected to be $89 billion. Ghana's projected GDP by end of this year is estimated to be $75 billion. Honorable members and colleagues, in order to reverse this downward trend, the next NDC government will introduce and implement a $10 billion big push. This big push is aimed at driving the needed focus and investment for economic growth and transformation. The big push will be a major economic policy of the next NDC government with 4 key economic growth poles. First is the Western Corridor Economic Enclave project, and then second is the Eastern Corridor Golden Growth Agenda. The third is the Transformational Road Transport Plan, and the fourth is the Cocoa and Palm Economic Crop Rejuvenation Program. Ladies and gentlemen, the NPP government has been a monumental failure. They have destroyed our livelihood. They have indeed driven our economy aground. They have collapsed Ghana's cocoa sector. They have wasted and dissipated Ghana's public fund. They have destroyed our good governance. They have reversed the progress of our country. They have delivered crude and painful haircuts across board. They have corrupted the moral fiber of our dear country. And of course, they have implemented the Ejapadie state capture plan. Let me say, fellow countrymen and women, that the time has come for us to come together to restore our country and reset our country. Many of them Ghana for Abani oda hwechere soronko oda abrehen. Abani wedi henewu. Yeda yenda. Edwuma nyi ho. Mbranti nye edwuma nye. Nketesia so wonye edwuma nye. Yare kasa sisiare yi. Se wie school mpa anyi medare ba beye. Wa ma hwechere kese aba. Da yetoto sra monye de. Abani otido ankasa ontumi nye monye yi. Baby a wode Ghana akwehye sambeka mo ho ambeka President Mahama no ho ambeka ya kyereba yen sister yen maame Professor Nana Jane Opoku Agema no ho ne yamboa yen papa oye President John Mahama ho a menuanom ahokyere no obegi nsem efi Ghana ha da yetoto sra mo de momboa hen fifi mantomofo mo amunyim de NDC party de yɛka party ɔdwene yɛn ho a ɔne nye NDC party mbiri biara ba wɔboa hen yɛtoto sra mu nyinaa mombɛka yɛn ho na yɛnyɛ na Ghana onye yei osande baby a Ghana rekɔn wayɛ ahometew dodo baby ɔma ne kɔ yi sɛ yɛnka mbom na sɛ yamgye ɔma ne mfi MPP wɔ nsɛm a ekuro yi ɔbɛsɛe medam ase bebree nyame hyira mu nyinaa